Good morning. So I posted a few days ago. I didn't put it on any reels or anything like that. Just about feeling very low. And it was a very, very low period. It was actually kind of scary. My lows are getting very, very low. And I probably need to do something about it. I'm not sure if this is where I need a booster or not, but it's kind of scary. So everything I feel is legit. I don't need to apologize for feeling the way I do. But after I posted that, I'm like, okay, Maggie, now what? What are you going to do? And I just waited, and I just saw what happened when I just had some time to rest, when I had some time to think, and I just took some breaths. So this morning, I've been reading the story of Naaman in 2 Kings 5. It used to be Evelyn's favorite story when she was about 5 or 6. And she would have me read it to her every single night. I never understood why she liked it, but she loved it. And I will tell you that at times I struggle a lot with bitterness because things aren't how I want them. Things aren't the way that they used to be. And I get just so frustrated and angry because I want things to go back. And I think God was really touching my heart today about that, because it's almost like I saw the world through Naaman's eyes, and I identified with him and I related to him. And then God was able to speak to me because all I did was look at one verse. It's the one where he walked away in a rage because Elisha didn't come to meet him. He sent a messenger, and his instructions were so simple. And Naaman was offended, and he walked away. And thankfully, he had a servant that said, hey man, if he had given you something really hard to do, wouldn't you have gladly done it? And he's like, of course. So if it's simple, what would it hurt just to do it? But I'm telling you, the part that said he walked away in a rage has been hitting me really, really hard, because I'm kind of in that spot right now, and I'm not trying to be. And I got some advice that I just need to think positive. I love people, but it's more than that. It's more than that. It isn't just about changing your thought process. It's about understanding why you're thinking the way you are, so that you can change your heart, which will change your thought process. Because out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. So I have to fix my heart first before I can fix my eyes. And so this is really cool. And this is what I wrote this morning, and it just poured out of me. What do you do when life gives you opposite of what you want? How long will you fight for things to go back? How long will you then fight for things to just be different than they are? Bloom where you are planted. That phrase will not leave. Is this new situation causing bitterness, anger, and resentment? Are you plotting what you will do when you are freed from this situation? Think. It may not be a grave injustice, but your feelings were hurt and your dreams crushed. Joseph. I can't believe I hadn't thought about Joseph. But this morning I'm like, Maggie, think about Joseph. Your feelings are probably what he was feeling when he was thrown into the dungeon. So Joseph most likely became content when he was in Potiphar's house. But God had bigger, better plans for him. In order for that to happen, Joseph needed to be humbled again, meet the people who were in the dungeon and those who worked there. You know, where you are was pretty good and you enjoyed it. However, it was not what God placed in your heart. If you are content, you will not be looking or even open to different opportunities because you're not desperate. When you have been taken off the path you were traveling and placed on one that is not your choosing, and God has not released you from it, there is a divine reason you are there. This isn't some superficial, shallow placement made by your boss. This has been orchestrated and crafted carefully and perfectly to have you align with God's purpose. This is not to bring you riches, fame, and power. This is for you to be used to glorify God. Until you stop fighting and resisting, you will stay miserable, discontent, angry, and malevolent. You really have two choices. Dig in your heels and fight what will not change, or become open to the idea that God himself has deemed you so significant that he has intervened in your trajectory. Has he ever been mean, spiteful, or played favorites? Has he ever not been your advocate? Then why are you acting like he is now? This is a time to hold on to God's character and wait for all to come together. What do you do in the meantime? Whatever is in front of you, do it heartily for the Lord your God, for he is truly your boss, your supervisor, your superior, and he will always fight for you. When everyone else fails, he will never. Look for him, for he is there. But I always have that. What if it's been a long time and nothing has changed? It is in the waiting that we begin to grow closer to God. What changes in the waiting is you. In the end, you become content regardless of where you are and what you're doing, because your eyes are now focused on the ultimate prize, eternity. You know, it's been years actually since I thought about heaven and how that's actually what I'm doing. I'm striving for that this world is not my home and that I'm just passing through, and that what I'm really trying to do is reach eternity with my Lord and Savior. I've actually forgotten. And it has been a series of rules and commandments and obligations. And it gets tough when you don't remember what is the ultimate purpose. When things look bleak, you're discouraged and losing hope, cry out to Jesus. Share your heart, your pain, and your frustration with him. He is your confidant, your counselor, and always on your side. This means so much to me after the message I posted the other day, when I felt like there is no one that I can confide in deep spiritual matters, because I'm not at that level with anyone. He may have a nugget of wisdom for you, but you must ask first. When you start getting angry at others for whatever reason, take it to Jesus. He will either fix them or change your perspective. Naaman was not healed until he gave God's way a chance. As long as he controlled his future, he kept his leprosy. What is more important, being right or being done and out of your situation? When I was in my doctorate, and we would get so upset, students, and our advisors would be like, you can fight for whatever your chair is telling you to fix, and you can demand that you're right, but the longer you do that, the longer you're going to be in this program. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be done? And that came to me this morning. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be out of my situation? So you really need to think about, what is it exactly that you want? I've been walking a long and lonely journey for quite some time. I was pretty low and discouraged the other day, hitting a rock bottom, and being open and real is part of the steps I must take to change. Because I will tell you, publicly, I have not shared the feelings that I shared the other day, ever. Because I kept thinking, this makes me a bad Christian, this makes me a bad witness, this makes it look like I'm being disrespectful, that I'm trashing people, and so I'll just keep it inside and I'll just hurt privately. It wasn't doing anything but destroying me. And I love what I said the other day, when I'm like, the only one this is hurting is me. And that's exactly right. And so I have to share, because otherwise I stay isolated and I stay just so alone in my hurt and my despair. So I had allowed myself to think that this is the end. However, if there is breath in my lungs and I'm able to think and comprehend, there is hope. Has anything changed? No, but I feel accountable for my words. I feel that there has to be a greater purpose for all of this. I don't care what anyone else says. There is a reason. There is purpose for every hurt, every pain. And I get so discouraged and hurt when people are like, just because this is a fallen world and because Adam and Eve sinned. I'm sorry, that's not acceptable for me. God has purpose and plans for every hurt, every tear, everything. It may not be what we think it should be, but there is a purpose. God restores what is broken, dead, and beyond hope. He is the God of the resurrection. I remember when I was doing a Bible study at my former church, and it was talking about the resurrection. And the Bible keeps talking and talking and talking about what a big deal it is to come back to life. And I was like, that is kind of a big deal. But when you grow up as a Christian and you're used to this story, you kind of lose the awe, the splendor, the beauty of what actually happened. And then when you look and you go, dude, that's really quite incredible. And what that means for every situation that you are in, that God can bring something back from the dead where there is no hope, because he's that powerful. Well, that changes all of your prayers. That changes all of the hope and the hurt and the pain, because it doesn't have to stay there. This doesn't have to be the end. Now, that is why they got so excited when Jesus rose from the dead and Lazarus rising from the dead. Okay? So God is the God of restoration and resurrection. And he showed me that last week. I know everybody thinks that the only thing that happened last week was sentencing and blah, blah, blah. But he actually restored 2 relationships that had been dead, buried, and were no longer something I prayed for. There was no hope. I didn't expect to ever see them again, talk to them, or whatever. But there was deep hurt. And I had rationalized in my mind that we won't have any reason to ever see each other again or ever talk to one another because of how everything ended. But I still prayed for them. I prayed that God would protect them and be merciful on them when the truth was revealed to them. And because I would never want anyone to hurt the way that I was hurt, and how hard of a journey that was. And I'm like, God, the only way they get through that is through you. And so I prayed that. And then I prayed for restoration and healing. And then when I felt the release from that, I was able to stop praying for it. So what happened was I just left it alone after that. And this was a few years ago that I finally felt a release from it. And then God brought it back to me, fixed and resolved. So I had to take my hands off the steering wheel before he was allowed to do whatever he needed to do. When I tried to keep control of the situation, I kept messing it up. But I said, okay, God, I've done my part. You've worked on my heart. Now, whatever you do with them, that's on you. And it worked because they came to me. And when they talked to me, there was no hurt, there was no pain, there was no angst, bitterness. All I felt was love and compassion for them. And they felt that for me too. If you would have seen what happened when we separated all those years ago, it looked like there would never be peace in that situation ever again. But God gave me a vision in my head when I was praying one time of one of the people and myself just holding hands and talking about God being the God of restoration. And I was like, that would never happen unless God moved in the midst of us. But I believed it with every fiber of my being. It was almost like my promise. Okay, so here's what else I realized. I am so afraid that if I quit fighting, then nothing will ever happen and I will never be vindicated. They will get away with it. That seems to be my fear. I spend hours, days, weeks, and months worrying about others not being held accountable for their actions, especially if they hurt me. Well, when are you going to do something about that, God? When are they going to be taken care of? I spend so much time because I'm like, if I stop fighting, no one will fight for me and for my situation because I'm on my own. That's not true. So as a teacher, I see this all the time. And it's just funny because what will happen is, and I've been teaching 21 years, and every single year, multiple times a year, students will come up to me and they'll be like, didn't you see what they're doing? How come I'm getting in trouble and they're not? And I'm always floored because I'm like, I'll take care of it. I promise. Let me address you and how I need to do that, and then I will take care of them. I promise. But because they don't see their stinkiness getting fixed right then and there, they think the only person I'm picking on is them. But that's really not it. So what I need to do as a teacher is I need to look at their situation specifically and personally and take what I know and address it appropriately. Now, also, they wouldn't want me to go spreading around how I addressed them and corrected them, but they want me to tell that person, the one who's upset, how I counseled, redirected, or punished the other person. So they want to be treated differently than everybody else. And that's not really how this works. And so each situation has different components that must be recognized because each story is different. What works for one would be wholly inappropriate for another. God is the master teacher, and we are the students in his class. If you're a teacher, if you can understand this analogy, it makes so much sense. So here's what I'm going to encourage today. Take your hands off the steering wheel. Set back. Tell God. Wail, travail, and then just allow yourself to wait and see what God's going to do. And while you're waiting, do whatever's in front of you to the best of your ability to honor and glorify God. Good luck.